Hey, we've been working on these combining integers forever, it seems like, and I know we are ready to move on to that multiplication and division. So you should have taken my combining rational numbers test yesterday. If you did not, make sure you get it done today because I have to turn my grades in next Tuesday, and once they're turned in, I can't go back and change them. So make sure that you have went in and you have checked your grades, and if you didn't take the quiz last Friday, I have messaged you. If you didn't take it, I need you to take that, and I need you to take today's test before you move on to this assignment. So make sure that gets done so I can get my grades turned in. I am so ready to move on to multiplying and dividing integers because I was getting really tired of all that adding and subtracting those rational numbers. But remember, we have to keep it in our head, so don't let it fall out of your ear because we're going to be using it more as we go on. And we have to eventually get to the four operations of rational numbers, and then we move on to distributive property, multi-step equations, and things like that. So if you're missing this part, it gets much harder. So make sure that you're really paying attention to these videos and you're not letting it fall out of your ear at night. So, we're going to start with multiplication and division today. And I know that when I was in school, they just told us the rules and we just did it and we had no idea why our answer was what it was. So, if you have grown-ups around your house, they've never seen this before, please don't tell them the rules, grown-ups, so we can discover them ourselves. And it may make a little sense to see it done this way on why you got the answer you got. But please don't let the secret out on what those rules are just yet. So let's get started. So you're going to need your paper. And we're going to make a little notebook entry just to help us remember what we're doing. And then we're going to practice using our counters to multiply. And we'll probably get to the division part tomorrow. And we'll probably talk about the actual rules tomorrow also. So let's start our notebook entry. And we're going to call it multiplying and dividing integers. And this is number 5. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what exactly does multiplication mean? Why do we write that 2 times 3 out? And what does that mean? So if we have 2 times 3, this really means 2 groups of 3. And you may remember that from previous lessons over the years. 2 groups of 3. And we also know that 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2. For multiplication and addition, we can use that commutative property where it doesn't matter what order it's in, it's going to be the same answer. 3 groups of 2. Okay, so now we're in 7th grade. In 7th grade, I don't know if you've noticed, but you build a lot on previous things that you've learned before. So we need to talk about how multiplication may be represented. We don't really use the X sign for multiplication in 7th grade because people get it confused with variables. Variables are I call it alphabet soup sometimes when we're working with numbers and it's maybe 2x plus 3 or 2y or 2b or 12b. It doesn't matter what the number is. If you have a variable, it's that letter that represents an unknown number. So we don't really use X for multiplication because it gets confused with variables. So another way, let's write other ways to represent multiplication. So those other ways, we can represent it with an X. We can represent it with a dot. We can represent it with parentheses, and this is what you'll probably see the most. And I have also seen it represented like this with double parentheses. Any way you see it, this is multiplication. Any of these ways are multiplication. Most likely you're going to see it like this. So, 2 times 3. What does that mean? If we write 2 times 3, this really says positive 2 times positive 3. How would I model positive 2 plus, not plus, positive 2 times positive 3? I could use my counters, and we're going to draw it on our paper right now just so we can make sure that we have it on our paper. So if you have those colored pencils that I gave you at the beginning of the year, get those out and let's use those colored pencils. So this says positive 2 times positive 3, which is the same thing as saying 2 groups of positive 3. 2 groups of positive 3. So if I have 2 groups of positive 3, that means I would need 3 counters. 1, 2, 3. And that's one group of 3. And then I would need another group of 3. So this is 2 groups of positive 3. This is a group, and this is a group. And that is equal to positive 6. 2 groups of positive 3. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to do it with black. Because we're going to model 2 other ways. What if it says positive 2 times negative 3? This would mean 2 groups of negative 3. So if I had 2 groups of negative 3, then I would need 3 reds for one group, and then another group of 3 reds. So again, I have 2 groups, 1, 2, and they're negative 3. So that gives me the answer of negative 6. Okay, now this time, what if it says negative 2 times negative 3? Here, this negative sign means the opposite of 2 groups of negative 3. So if you have this sign, it means the opposite of 2 groups of negative 3. Okay, the opposite of 2 groups of negative 3. So if I was going to do 2 groups of negative 3, it looks like this. So if I wanted to model the opposite of two groups of -3, I would have the opposite of -3 would be +3. So I would have two groups of +3. Here's my group, and here's my group, and that is equal to +6. Now, the grown-ups at your house might be like, oh, I never knew that. I didn't either until I started teaching it. And now I'm like, oh, well, that does make sense because I always wondered why. But if you haven't figured it out yet, just keep looking. And I know I just introduced this. So we've got plenty of time to practice. So again, to recap, multiplying, the multiplication sign means groups of. Two groups of 3 or three groups of 2. Other ways to represent multiplication is with a dot, with a parentheses, or with two sets of parentheses. When you read it, you know if there's no sign that it is positive. +2 times +3 means two groups of +3, which is equal to 6. 2 times 3 is 6. If you have two groups of -3, that means two groups of -3, which is equal to -6. And this is probably the most important to remember, is that if you have a negative on the outside, then that means the opposite of two groups of -3, which means you would flip your counters and make them positive. So two groups of +3 is +6. Let's practice. You will need to take a picture of this and post it. So don't lose this. Make sure it stays either in your notebook or in your binder so you don't lose it. So make sure you're keeping up with it because you might need to come back to it. Okay? So let's do some examples. If I have +3 times +4, that means three groups of +4. So I'm going to need 4 kilos. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one group. And I need three groups of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then one more group. Okay, so that's three groups. 1, 2, 3. And they all have +4 in each group. So my answer is 4, 8, 12. And it is a +12. +12. So +3 times +4 is equal to +12. Let's try another one. This time let's do +2 times -8. This means two groups of -8. So I'm going to need red counters, two groups of them. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's one group. 2, 4, 6, 8. So check my model. Two groups of -8. 2, 4, 6, 8, and they're red, so they're negative. 4, 6, 8, red, negative. So two groups of -8 is equal to -16. Let's try another one. This time, let's try -5 times -2. This means the opposite of five groups of -2. So if it's the opposite of 5 groups of -2, the opposite of -2 is +2. So I'm going to need yellows. 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of +2 because I needed the opposite of -2. So do I have the opposite of -2? Yes, I have +2's. And I have 5 groups, which means that my answer is +10. Slide it to the side. Okay. What if we have -6 times +2? What would this mean? It would mean the opposite of 6 groups of +2. So if I need the opposite of +2, then I'm going to use red counters. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I need one more group. 2. Okay, so let's see. Do I have 6 groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do have 6 groups. Do I have the opposite of +2? They're red, so they are the opposite. So my answer here is -12. Okay. I have assigned you some problems for you to model with your counters. It is a virtual model. You can do it on your desk if you would like to practice some before you do your virtual models, or you can just do it virtually. Just make sure you turn it in to me and make sure you have a picture of your notebook entry that we did to begin with, because that can be your study guide when you get ready to study for the test that will have multiplying integers on it. Good luck. Have a good day.